Welcome everyone to episode 2 of the Mythic Pod here on Mythic United. I am your host, Tony, and today we are going to start a mini-series of podcasts. And today's episode is going to be predicting the Xbox and what's going to happen in 2018. So we're going to go over what games we know are coming out, the games I expect will come out, and games I predict will be revealed and or come out as well. We are also going to go over software and hardware announcements, if there are any to be had for any one of these episodes. As well, we're going to have a quick overview of what happened back in 2017 for the Xbox. So we're also going to do an episode on the PlayStation 4 and the Nintendo Switch as well as part of this mini-series, and those will be releasing in the coming weeks. So without further ado, let's jump in. 2017 was an interesting year for the Xbox One. We didn't have too many games come out, but there was a lot of movement on the software and hardware fronts, and software being anything but games. But let's start off with the games anyways, because there were some great games that came out in 2017. So, we had Halo Wars 2, which came out in February last year, and Halo Wars 2 it's a fantastic game, really. It's a great RTS. You can play it on the Xbox One, which it works very well on a controller, and it's probably the only RTS to ever really do it right on a console. As well as you can play it on PC for the first time, which is the best way to play it in my opinion if you have the means to. Not that playing it on the Xbox One is a disservice to the game at all. It's built for it, it works fine. I completed the campaign on the Xbox One, and I think it works perfectly fine there, and there was never a point where I was feeling hindered by the controller. But once you jump on PC, you can really understand how an RTS is just kind of better on a PC. Halo Wars 2 is great. Halo Wars 2 had an interesting story. It takes place after the events of Halo 5, 6 months after to be exact. And it introduced a lot of new characters, and it brought forth the original Halo Wars crew from the Spirit of Fire, which was a prequel. It was actually before even Halo Reach, the original Halo Wars, and it brought them actually past Halo 5. So it'll be interesting to see how these characters and this plot weaves into the next Halo game. As well, the multiplayer was solid, and the balance was very good as well for the most part, except for Sergeant Forge, who is broken. He is awful. And by awful, I mean overpowered in every single way, especially at the beginning of the game. But otherwise, Halo Wars 2... It was a good release. I think it was great, and it had a solid DLC plan from as soon as it released, and every month a new leader was coming out with new units, so it kind of added something to mix into the game, as well as it had 2 campaign expansions, kind of a mini campaign expansion at first, and then more of a full-fledged one, Awakening the Nightmare, this past fall, which I have yet to play, but I'm looking forward to doing so. As well, we had Cuphead come out, and if you haven't seen Cuphead, you need to do yourself a favor and find some gameplay of Cuphead. It's stunning to look at. It looks like a 1920s, 30s, 40s cartoon in terms of the art style, and it plays like that. It's kind of, you need to double take. It's like, this is a video game? Yeah, it's a video game. It looks that good, and it was all hand drawn by a very small studio, and it took them years to make. And this game won a ton of awards, and rightfully so for that. As well, the gameplay is just stupid hard from what I understand. I actually haven't played Cuphead yet, but watching people play it and reading reviews about it, the game is difficult, but in a good way. It's challenging. It's not unfair. It's just very challenging. Couple that with its incredible art style, and Cuphead was definitely one of the most unique games released last year, period, yet alone on the Xbox One. We also had Forza Motorsport 7 release this year on the Xbox One, and for those who don't keep up with the Forza series, we basically get a Forza game every year, and it alternates between the Motorsport series, which is what we got in 2017, and the Horizon series, which is developed by Playground Games. And Turn 10 develops the Motorsport series, and if you are a car guy or a car girl, you need to play Forza Motorsport, because it's the definitive racing experience on any console, computer, you name it. Forza is the best way to play it. It's detail and the effort they took to make it so meticulously crafted and polished. It's really something to behold, and it's like that every year with the Forza series. It's almost like you expect it to be great, and it's great every year. There's no racing game that really comes close to how great Forza Motorsport is in terms of a pure racing sim. Its lineup of cars is it's massive, and you can actually go into this kind of detailed car mode where you can get into the car and look at the details of the inside of it. You can go under the hood. You can look at the details at the stitching between the seats if you want to. It's really a marvel to behold. Forza Motorsport's a fantastic game. As well, we had a bit of surprise, and that was Super Lucky's Tale. Super Lucky's Tale was originally a VR game, and I believe it was just called Lucky's Tale. It was brought to Xbox One this year, and it was kind of not dumbed down, but in a little bit of a way dumbed down for more of the casual audience. Now, when they revealed this game at E3, I lost my mind because, Lucky's a fox, so they kind of showed the foxtail at first, and when I saw that, the first thing I thought of was Conker's Bad Fur Day. Now, Conker isn't a fox, but he's, the squirrel. They kind of have similar tails, just in the way they actually drew Lucky's tail. So, when they first showed it, I'm like, there's no way there's a Conker's game coming out in 2017. Like, that's not acceptable anymore. But, it turned out not to be Conker's. It turned out to be Super Lucky's Tale. It was met with lukewarm reception for the most part. It's a good game to play with your kids. It's a good game to share with the younger generation. It's not overly difficult. It's cute. It's charming. It looks good. It's generally fun to play, but it's not really for gamers. It's an interesting game for sure. Definitely not one of the highlights of the year. And lastly, but definitely the biggest release, it was PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds on the Xbox One. And unequivocally, this was the biggest game of the year, period. Not just on Xbox, but on PC as well. Over 30 million copies sold. Over 3 million copies sold on the Xbox, and it only had 1 month of sales, which I think makes it the highest selling Xbox One game of the year with less than a month of time to sell it, which is absolutely insane, and for good reason. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds is a ton of fun to play. It's definitely better on its PC counterpart, and that basically has to do with just the updates that have come to that game. If you haven't watched somebody play PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, or you haven't played it yourself, which 30 million people have played it at this point, so you probably have, but if you haven't played it yet, I encourage you to pick it up. Whether you have a gaming PC or a console, I would pick it up on either or, depending on what you have. It's definitely a worthwhile experience. Now, the Xbox One version is still very rough around the edges. They need to do a lot of optimization. They need to fix the controls a little bit. They need to fix the inventory system. But once they do that, it's going to be the biggest game on Xbox for years to come, until the next big thing, the next cultural phenomenon comes out. This thing really is here. It's the next Minecraft in terms of how big this thing is. It's just going to keep selling and selling and selling. PUBG, which is what they call it, it's a solid game. It definitely isn't without its problems, but it's different every single time you play it, which really adds to the replay value. No match is the same, which is awesome. Now, getting away from games a little bit, but not really, we also had original Xbox backwards compatibility announced at E3 and released in fall 2017. And this is kind of a big deal. Now you can play original Xbox games that came out back in like 2001 on your Xbox One seamlessly. If you have the disc, even you can pop the disc in the disc tray and it'll recognize the game and play it for you. Or if you're like me and you don't have any of those games anymore, you can just download them off the store for a very reasonable $10 price tag, which is great. And there's only 13 games on this program right now, but I fully expect they'll expand it, which we'll get to in a little bit. But this was a big deal, and you can go back and play some awesome original Xbox games. We also had a new dashboard experience launch on the Xbox One this year, and this was a big deal. The previous iterations of the Xbox One dashboard were slow, they were clunky, they didn't make much sense, they were cluttered with ads, and it was hard to find what you actually wanted to get to unless you knew your way around the system, which for me it wasn't an issue, but I can imagine for a lot of casual people it was. The new dashboard experience makes a lot of sense. It's fast, it's fluid, you can find things easily, and the updated guide makes it so that with a press of a button you can pretty much get where you need to go within a matter of 2 or 3 button presses, which is exactly what it needed, and it kind of harkens back to the Xbox 360 days, where if you ever needed to do anything, you would use the guide. The dashboard was really just your initial startup point. The guide was your entry point into everything about the Xbox 360. And now the Xbox One is like that too, and I think that's the best part about it. So the new dashboard experience is great. And last on this list is the Xbox One X, or Project Scorpio for those who know it by that. And that released November in 2017, and it met expectations and blew them out of the water. This is easily the most powerful console ever released, unequivocally. There's nothing that comes close. When looking at games enhanced for the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X, the Xbox One X blows it out of the water 9 times out of 10, and that other 1 time out of 10 it doesn't blow it out of the water. It still beats it, but just not as clearly. But either way, the Xbox One X came out and accomplished exactly what it was looking to do. If you're looking to get the most powerful console and you don't want to spend too much money on a gaming PC and you want 4K gaming, there's nothing that's more price sensitive and easy to own than the Xbox One X, which is great. So overall, in 2017, there were 5 Xbox One exclusives that released: Halo Wars 2, Cuphead, Forza Motorsport 7, Super Lucky's Tale, and PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. We also had original backwards compatibility for the original Xbox One come out. We had a much more improved new dashboard experience come out, and we had the Xbox One X come out. That was 2017 for the Xbox. Now let's dive into 2018. So let's start off with the games and what we know. So starting off the year in March is Sea of Thieves. And Sea of Thieves, for those who don't know it or haven't seen it, it's a open world, always living world, pirate MMORPG. And for those who have played it, I've only seen videos of it, and I think that does it a disservice. For those who have played it, they've all come back for the most part and loved it, and they've really fallen in love with the game, which I think is a good sign. Now, it remains to be seen exactly how much this is going to catch on as kind of a social game on the Xbox One and Windows 10 as well. I think with friends, this game is going to be one of the most fun experiences you can have in 2018 and beyond. I think it remains to be seen how much of an experience this is going to be by yourself as a solo player, which personally, I'm in my 20s, I graduated university, I have a job, my friends have gone through college or university, or they have jobs, or both, and our gaming schedules don't always align perfectly, so it's going to be hard to get the whole gang together to play this game. So I hope they know who they're marketing this game towards, because if it's to high school students who have a ton of time to play video games, then great, they're going to have an awesome time. If it's to gamers like myself who want to have a really cool social experiment with my friends, I'm not sure if it's gonna hit fully, because we just don't have the time anymore. But regardless, Sea of Thieves, it looks to be like a very polished and fun experience. I encourage you to go watch some gameplay videos of parties of people playing it at preview events, or game press journalists playing it together. I think IGN might have a playthrough up as well, and it's a lot of fun. It's a silly game. It doesn't take itself too seriously. You kind of pirate a ship with your friends. You control it. You can take down other ships. You can shoot yourself out of a cannon at other ships or onto islands. There's lots of treasure to loot. You can go underwater and you can get eaten by sharks. It's kind of a really fun game to play and to watch from what I see. So Sea of Thieves looks to be like a fun game. The next big game is State of Decay 2, which is scheduled for a spring/summer release this year. The best way I can explain State of Decay 2 is that it's like The Walking Dead, like the TV show, but actually good. There isn't 10 episodes of filler. It's going to be like a open world zombie survival game that you can play with friends, and it's permadeath, which is great. So it actually has consequences when you die. You lose all your stuff. You have to make a new character. You need to start over. So State of Decay is all about looting. It's about surviving. It's about building your settlement and seeing how long you can last in this world that's out to kill you every single minute. The first State of Decay was definitely a hit, the Xbox 360. It definitely lacked a lot of polish, and at the time it was a smaller game, and it was developed by a much smaller studio. They've definitely beefed up production staff for State of Decay 2, and they've been given a much larger budget by Microsoft themselves. So I fully expect State of Decay 2 to be a premier experience on the Xbox One this year. We also have Ori and the Will of the Wisps, which, if you haven't played Ori and the Blind Forest, you need to do yourself a favor. You need to play that game, man. Wow. Ori and the Blind Forest is one of my favorite games on the Xbox One, and It's probably pretty close to one of my favorite games of all time. It might not be in the top 10, but it's pretty damn close. Ori is one of the most visually stunning experiences I've ever played. The art style it's fantastic. Everything is so vibrant, and the soundtrack and the gameplay, it all comes together to this really, really beautiful experience that it's definitely not easy to play either. Like, the gameplay it's challenging, it's fair, but it's very challenging. It's kind of like your typical Metroidvania game where you need to go traverse through areas, do the thing, upgrade your abilities, and kind of backtrack through areas and unlock new areas, and so on and so forth. Ori and the Blind Forest had a lot of that going for it, and it was fantastic, really. It's one of my favorite games, and I think Ori and the Will of the Wisp, we only seen a teaser trailer, but I believe that it's just going to be more of the same kind of great experience that we had with Ori and the Blind Forest. And the last game we know about is Crackdown 3, which is scheduled for a spring release date. We'll see what happens with it. But Crackdown 3 has been delayed numerous times at this point. The original Crackdown was one of my favorite experiences on the Xbox 360. I had a ton of fun with friends, jumping around the city, collecting orbs, blowing shit up, upgrading my agent, that kind of stuff. It was kind of a unique experience where it was Grand Theft Auto but on steroids, which is kind of exactly what the doctor ordered in a lot of cases for me and my friends when we were looking to game together. Crackdown 3 looks to be a continuation of that. Now, it's been delayed a bunch of times, and mostly for polish reasons, which I respect. I would rather have them take the time to develop this game, do it right, not release it broken, and it released with a ton of content, than release a broken game that it's not going to gain much traction. And I think Microsoft knows this. They know that they can't release a dud big AAA first-party exclusive at this point because they're so far behind on the front with Sony. Regardless, though, Crackdown 3 looks like it's going to be a very fun experience, and I'm very much looking forward to it. And that's all we know for 2018. It's actually not too much. What do I expect? What do I expect is going to come out? Well, we know that Forza has a game that comes out every year between Horizon and Motorsport, and this year's turn is Horizon. So I believe we're going to get a Forza Horizon 4, which I think is a very safe bet, sometime in the fall, sometime in September or October. And there's been rumors that Forza Horizon 4 is taking place in Tokyo, which is a very, very cool experience. It's going to be in Japan, which it's definitely much different than Australia, and also France, where Forza Horizon 3 and Forza Horizon 2 took place. I think that this game, like Forza Horizon 3, could turn a lot of heads onto the Xbox brand. The Horizon series, it's definitely a racing game at heart, but it's also it's open world. It doesn't take itself as seriously as Motorsport, and it's a lot more accessible to most gamers who aren't looking for this ultra-realistic car sim. It's still realistic in a lot of ways, but it doesn't take itself too seriously. You can, for example, in Forza Horizon 2, you can plow through vineyards with your truck and stuff like that. Forza Horizon 4 looks to come out this fall, in my mind. It's going to come out sometime in September or October, and just like Forza Horizon 3, which is actually the highest rated Xbox One exclusive, it's I think it has a Metacritic of close to 90, if not higher than 90, which is very, very good. So if Horizon 3 is the most popular and or highest scoring Xbox One exclusive, Horizon 4 has a lot of big expectations for it. And I fully expect they're going to deliver on it because they always do. As well as there's a little indie game called Below, which has been teased for years and years and years and years and years, and we haven't gotten a game yet. And I think this is the year we're finally going to get that game. And if you haven't seen Below, I encourage you to go watch some trailers. It's kind of like it's pretty unique. It's kind of like a dungeon crawling experience. You're gonna keep working your way down this mountain and exploring and discovering and going on quests and stuff like that. It's hard to explain, but Below looks like it's gonna be a pretty neat experience on the Xbox One, and it's hopefully coming out this summer. Now, what do I predict is gonna happen this year for the Xbox brand? Let's start off with some cheeky predictions here, and they're actually not so much predictions anymore as just leaks, and that is we're going to get a new Fable game, and we're going to get a new Perfect Dark game. Now, the Fable game has a lot of steam behind it right now. Eurogamer, the news site, has sources close to the developers working on the game, and they've confirmed that they are working on a new Fable game for the Xbox One, and it's going to be a big Fable game. It's going to be a proper either sequel to Fable 3, so a Fable 4, or it's going to be a complete relaunch of the series, and they're just going to call it Fable. Regardless, we're going to get Fable back, which is something I love. I love the Fable games. I even liked Fable 3, and that was probably one of the worst ones, aside from all the Kinect games and stuff like that. So I'm very excited for the new Fable game to come out. And the people who are developing the Fable game, it's actually Playground Games, which is the same developing studio as the people who make the Horizon series. And you ask, how are they making two games at once? Well, they've been beefing up their staff quite a bit in the past year, and they've been hiring for an open world action game, and I guess that's what this Fable game is going to be for them. They actually have a second development studio at Playground Games now, and they're going to be making this Fable game. It'll be interesting to see how it turns out, because Playground's only ever made racing games, but I fully expect that with the pedigree that Playground has, this will be a very, very good Fable game. I don't think we're going to get it this year, but I think that since they've been beefing up staff and that these leaks are kind of coming out, we might actually get a teaser at this year's E3. And let's move on to Perfect Dark, which kind of came along in the same batch of rumors as Fable. We don't know exactly who's developing a new Perfect Dark game, but this seems to have some steam behind it as well. And I think that we might get a Perfect Dark reveal at this year's E3 for the Xbox brand, and that it might either come out this year or it's going to come out sometime early next year in that January to April period. And this is where it gets kind of dicey. There's no rumors behind any of the things that I'm about to talk about. This is just me going off of my intuition. So let's start off with Gears of War. I don't think we're getting a Gears of War teaser at any point this year. Gears of War 4 came out in 2016, so since it's 2018, it's actually been 2 years since the last Gears of War game. So you would expect the new one to come out sometime next year. And I think that Microsoft is going to have a big coming out party with Gears of War 5, and it's going to be either its own event, or it's going to be revealed at Gamescom, or it's going to be revealed at E3 next year. Gears of War, it's big enough that it doesn't need anything else supporting it, and that could be the staple title for that year. So I think that Gears of War will be the big game next year. And let's talk about any new IP that Xbox might have, and I think they need to have at least one or two coming out this year. Phil Spencer started a couple years ago now as the head of Xbox, and anything that he would have put into production as when he started should start coming to fruition about now, or last year, or this year, really. This is the sweet spot. So this is where we're going to get all the games that he would have greenlit to start being produced back when he started, and they're actually going to be coming out. So I think we're actually going to be getting a couple completely new franchises coming out to the Xbox One this year and next year. I think we might get one or two this year, one coming out in the fall, maybe two coming out in the fall, but I doubt they would crowd it that much. So I would say one coming out in the fall and one coming out sometime next year as well. And it's hard to predict what those will be. Xbox is missing an RPG, but Fable might fill that gap. So this might just be another action game. I doubt it'll be a shooter at that. It might be something completely different. And let's get into Halo people. In 343's 2018 community update, they stated that they're excited to go on new adventures with us this year, but not the ones we're expecting. Now, what does that tell you? Well, that tells me that we're not getting Halo 6 this year, because that's the one everyone's expecting, the next big Halo game. But what it does tell me as well is that we are going to get something new from Halo this year. I don't think it's going to be Halo Wars 2 related. I don't think it's going to be Halo 5 related. And they're not going to release anything additional for the Master Chief Collection at this point. And what does that mean? Well, I think we're going to get a Halo spin-off game this year, after all. Equivalent to an ODST, where it's a shorter campaign experience and it has some new features to it, and maybe it revamps the past game's multiplayer. Halo has a lot of work to do in terms of fixing what happened with Halo 5, and I think 343 knows this. They know that they left the story in disarray. People were not happy with the campaign. They don't like where it's going, and they had a lot of issues with the way Halo 5 changed things and turned everything on its head. Releasing a spin-off game, and by spin-off, I should really just say a side game, maybe you can bridge the gap between Halo 5 and Halo 6 and really clean things up for the next Halo game, so that when that does come out, it comes out swinging. It doesn't need to worry about the past game's mistakes. That is Halo 5. It can really just come out full force and be that Halo game everyone wants it to be. I think that if they were just to release Halo 6 and without any fixing to what actually happened during the events of Halo 5, Halo 6 is going to be a rocky experience, because there is way too much going on. Halo 5 had more than 10 main plot characters by the end of it. You had all of Fireteam Osiris, you had all of Blue Team, You had Arbiter, you had Halsey, you had Cortana, you had Lasky. The list goes on. You had Palmer even. So there was too much going on in Halo 5, and I think they know that, and I think they need to clean it up before they get to their next big entry in the series. So I think we get a Halo experience this year where it's a side story, and maybe we play from the perspective of Blue Team, and we try to bridge the gap between Halo 5 and Halo 6, whatever that means. Maybe you connect with events that happened in Halo Wars 2, since that took place after Halo 5, and you connect with the Spirit of Fire and all those Spartans, and you discover Atriox from Halo Wars 2, who's an awesome villain, and maybe you work with that. More importantly, they could actually test some new gameplay strategies, and they could test some new multiplayer mechanics and modes that I think would be beneficial for Halo 6 to have kind of a test pilot for. Halo 5's microtransactions were not the greatest thing in the world. They were, for Warzone, it was at first fine because everyone was on the same playing field and everyone had about the same amount of weapons and vehicles they could spawn in, but it kind of turned into a shit show after what happened with people getting more rec packs as time moved on and stockpiling them. So you'd go into a match of Warzone and you get to your rec level 7 or whatever, and you'd spawn in your Scorpion, great, and you'd get a couple kills with it, and then somebody else with the Scorpion would kill you, which sucked. But maybe that's your only Scorpion, but that guy actually has 20 more stockpiled, so he's not actually worried about it because he can just spawn in another one in a couple minutes after he dies. As well, the armor system in Halo 5 wasn't great because they had a million different armor systems locked behind a paywall that was completely loot box randomized, so you couldn't even get the armor you wanted initially. You just had to roll the dice forever until you got something you liked, which sucked really. So I think that they could test a lot of new things in this Halo side game, be it a new microtransaction system, be it an improved Warzone mode, and they could even experiment with reverting back to classic Halo and seeing what the response would be with that, or maybe they can experiment with doubling down on this super modern Halo and maybe what the response to that is, and they can gauge that and develop Halo 6 around that. I personally think that if a spin-off game was to release this year in 2018, we wouldn't be getting Halo 6 until at least 2020, which I think is completely fine, or we wouldn't be getting Halo 6 until the next Xbox releases, which is crazy to think, but we've already been in this generation for 5 years now, so it's not too far-fetched. And that's all I predict really on the games front. So let's talk about some other software and some other hardware things for the Xbox brand in 2018. So what do we know is going to happen? I'm going to start off with something that is kind of game related, and that's the Master Chief Collection finally getting fixed and getting a 4K update for the Xbox One X. And I'm kind of making this a big deal because it is a big deal in that finally this Ultimate Halo collection, this collection that should have been a surefire thing and it should have been selling like hotcakes and everyone with an Xbox One should have one because it just makes sense to have all your classic Halo games revamped for your Xbox One and you can play them at any time. It was broken, man, so nobody really bought it. And I shouldn't say nobody, it probably still sold a couple million copies, but nowhere near where it should be at this point. So this Master Chief Collection fix is a big deal. As well, it's been reported on that there is a new achievement system in the works for the Xbox brand. And by a new system, I mean maybe just an improvement on what's already there. So currently the achievement system, it doesn't really mean anything. You get your points for completing games, completing certain actions in games, and you get your gamer score higher and higher. And it doesn't really mean anything. It's just a big contest to say, oh yeah, I have 80,000 gamer score and you only have 50. But in the end, it doesn't really mean anything. So I think this new system, what they're going to go with, it's been reported on that it's a career system. And what that means is your achievements is going to count towards a career level, and those career levels unlock rewards for different things. And in addition to just achievements, it's also going to reward playtime, which I think is good. So for the people who spend a lot of time playing certain games, you get your people who just play a ton of Destiny or play a ton of Halo, and that's kind of all they play. Their gamer score isn't going to reflect the time spent that they've played on Xbox, right? So there's only a certain amount of gamer score you can get per game. So if I have 30 days worth of playtime on Halo 5, I can only ever get 1,000 gamer score anyways, or it might actually be a little higher now because they had some DLC updates, but still, you can only ever get that much. So this new career system is going to reward both achievements and playtime. And those rewards that I'm talking about, it's been reported on that those are going to be unlockables for the new avatar system, which will be the next thing. So there's a completely revamped avatar system that was revealed 2 E3s ago, and it was revealed a little bit last year as well, and I think it's going to release alongside this new achievement career system as well. And this new avatar system is a lot more robust and built out than the original Xbox 360 avatar system. Okay, so what do I expect now? Well, I expect that there is going to be a second version of the Elite controller, version 2, if you will. This has been reported on a little bit. It's been rumored, so that's why I kind of expect it. It's definitely not a sure thing, but I think that the Elite controller version 2 will come out this year, and that'll be one of their points at the E3 press conference. It's going to be an updated controller with additional upgrades and improvements and customization options compared to the previous Elite controller. Now, I own the first Elite controller, and I can say without a doubt it's my favorite controller ever made. It's got a great weight to it. It feels good in your hands. It grips really well. The buttons are really clicky. The customizable sticks is a lot of fun. And if you want to put the back paddles on, it can add some options for you. And actually, I'm just thinking about this now. Talking about PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds earlier in the podcast, I think those additional back paddles could solve a lot of controller issues that I'm having. So I might have to try that. But regardless, the Elite controller version 2 I predict will come out. And the original Elite controller actually sold millions, which is kind of funny. They couldn't meet demand at first. So I think this Elite controller version 2 will be a slam dunk for them. And what do I predict? Well, I don't think we're going to get any big dashboard revamps. I think we're just going to get improvements to the current system. I think they have something very good going for them right now, so they're not going to mess with it too much. I don't think we're going to get any additional hardware as well. We just got the Xbox One X. I don't think we're going to get a new version of the Xbox One S. That's still a very, very solid console to own, so I don't think we're going to get anything new on the hardware front. The only thing I could see on the hardware front actually happening is that there was rumors last year of a Xbox streaming box where you can plug it into your TV and get access to your entire Xbox One digital library and stream it. Kind of like the Steam Link that you can get right now, where you can stream your games from your computer to your TV. This would be more of a on-the-go experience where if you have an internet connection, you can access your Xbox One library and play games. That might come out, but that's all I can see. The last two things I can really predict in terms of hardware, and it doesn't have anything to do with new releases, it's just price drops. And I believe that the Xbox One S and the Xbox One X will both get price drops this year. I think that the Xbox One S will drop from $299 Canadian or $249 American. It's going to go down to $249 Canadian and $199 American, so it'll drop another $50. It'll be the cheapest console to own, and it'll be that's a very aggressive price point. I think that'll help move a lot of Xboxes. As well as we're going to get an Xbox One X price point drop. Right now, the Xbox One X is $599 Canadian or $499 American. So it is quite expensive, but for what you're getting, it's actually one of the cheaper things to get 4K gaming on. If you try to build a 4K gaming computer to what the Xbox One X actually accomplishes, you're never going to spend $500. You're always going to be spending upwards of $800 to get something like that, even close, and that's with a lot of bargain hunting. You're probably going to be actually in the 1,000 range. So either way, though, I think that with prices dropping on components as they do as the years go on, and that's how they can drop these prices, because these things get cheaper to manufacture as new technologies come along and old ones get more efficient. I think that the Xbox One X will drop a full $100, so it'll be $499 Canadian or $399 American. And this will help it compete with the PS4 Pro, which is a cheaper price point, but it's also not really the same thing compared to the Xbox One X. So in closing, Xbox needs a big year. It ran pretty low on exclusives in 2017, and while it had a couple of great exclusives with Forza, PUBG, Halo Wars 2, and Cuphead, I think it needs to really hit hard this year and drop some big games on us. And we already know a couple that are coming out, and I think that alongside some new IP that they definitely need to come out with, as well as potentially a Halo side game, as well as maybe a Perfect Dark this year, I think that would be good for the Xbox brand. The Xbox brand has hardware locked down at this point. The Xbox One X is unequivocally the best console you can own if you're looking to get the best experience. It's the only true 4K gaming console, and if you're looking for 4K gaming, it's their cheapest entry point, period. Not even just on PC, but anywhere. So now that it's proved itself via hardware, it really needs to prove itself via software, like I said before. Now that you have this ultimate place to play games on the Xbox, and now that you can access your entire back catalog of all these incredible Xbox 360 games and hopefully more Xbox original games through the backwards compatibility program, now Xbox just needs to push out all these new games. And like I mentioned previously in the podcast, Phil Spencer's been at the helm for a couple of years now, so anything that he would have greenlit at the beginning of his tenure will be coming to fruition very shortly, whether it's this year or next year. And that's it for this week's episode of the Mythic Pod. I've been Tony from Mythic United. Thank you so much for listening. Please subscribe on iTunes. You can find us just by searching Mythic United, as well as I'll leave a link in the description. As well as you can listen to our podcast on www.mythicunited.com, where you'll also find all of our other content, whether it's a video, whether it's a blog post, whether it's a news article. Thank you so much for listening, guys, and we will see you next time.